My name is Rachel. I'm 31 years old, and for the longest time, I believed I had built the life I always dreamed of. I had a husband, David, who I thought adored me. We had been married for 8 years, and while our marriage wasn't perfect, I truly believed we were solid. We also had 2 young kids, ages 5 and 3, who were the center of my world. Our days were full of chaos, laughter, and the kind of exhaustion that comes from chasing toddlers around the house. But I loved it. Even on the hardest days, I would look at my family and think, this is everything I ever wanted. David worked long hours at an accounting firm. He often came home tired, but he always kissed me, hello asked about the kids, and made a point of tucking them in at night. I told myself I was lucky, so many of my friends complained about absent husbands, but David seemed present, caring, reliable, still. With his schedule and my part-time job, things got overwhelming. That's when we decided to hire a babysitter. Just a few evenings a week, sometimes weekends, to give us breathing room. That's how Anna came into our lives. Anna was 22, a college student who lived just a few streets away. From the moment she walked in, she seemed perfect. Bright smile, soft voice, patient with the kids. My daughter clung to her within the first 10 minutes, which shocked me because she was usually shy around strangers. Anna had this way of making herself comfortable in any space. She'd hum little songs while helping the kids with puzzles, laugh easily at their jokes, and even tidy up the living room without me asking. I remember thinking, what a blessing. We couldn't have found anyone better. The kids adored her. Every time she arrived, they'd run to the door, squealing her name. Anna's here. They'd shout, wrapping themselves around her legs. I trusted her almost immediately. Too much, maybe. She became a regular presence in our home. Friday nights, when David and I wanted some time alone, Anna would come by and keep the kids entertained. Saturday afternoons, if I needed to run errands, she was always available. She even started joining us for family dinners occasionally, laughing and joking like she belonged there. At first, I was grateful. Grateful that someone young, energetic, and trustworthy was helping us raise our kids in those small but important ways. But looking back, I see how as eyeless she slipped into the spaces between us. One evening, I remember sitting at the kitchen table, going over bills, while Anna and David played with the kids in the living room. The sound of their laughter drifted in loud, carefree, like he didn't have a worry in the world. I smiled, thinking, he deserves this. He works so hard. I'm glad he can relax with them. Back then, it never occurred to me that I wasn't just listening to my husband having fun with his children. I was listening to the beginning of something else. The months went on, and Anna became almost like family. She'd ask me about my day, share little stories from school, and even offered to help me plan birthday parties for the kids. Everyone around us seemed impressed. You're so lucky, my sister said once. Most babysitters just sit on their phones. Anna actually cares. And they agreed. I felt lucky. Maybe that's why I ignored the tiny pangs in my chest when I noticed how often David mentioned her. Anna's so good with the kids. Anna really helped out last night. Anna's a lifesaver. It sounded innocent. Of course he appreciated her. She was helping our family. Still, sometimes the way he said her name lingered in my ears longer than it should have. At the time, though, I brushed it all aside. I thought, don't be paranoid. Don't ruin a good thing with silly thoughts. Because if I had questioned it then, maybe I would have had to face the truth sooner, and the truth was something I wasn't ready for. At first, and it felt like the answer to prayers I hadn't even spoken out loud. She made life easier. She gave me breathing room. She was supposed to be nothing but a help. But slowly, things started to shift. It began with little details. One night after dinner, I was folding laundry in the bedroom when I heard laughter from the living room. Not the kids' laughter, David's. The deep, carefree kind of laugh. I hadn't heard from him in months. I peeked down the hall and saw him and Anna sitting on the floor, building block towers with the kids. But the kids had run off for a moment, chasing each other around. And still, the two of them kept laughing, trading jokes like old friends. I told myself it was harmless. David deserved to laugh. Anna was just being friendly. But for some reason, I stayed at the door a moment too long, watching, my chest tightening. Another evening, Anna stayed later than usual. The kids had already gone to bed, and I was finishing some paperwork at the kitchen table. I noticed David lingering in the living room with her. They weren't doing anything inappropriate, just talking. But the way he leaned in, the way she tilted her head and smiled, it felt too familiar. When I walked in, they stopped mid-sentence. "What are you two talking about?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Anna smiled brightly. "Oh, Just college stuff. I was telling him about my classes. David nodded quickly, almost too quickly. Yeah, just school stuff. It shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. From then on, I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Anna touched her hair when David spoke. The way his compliments came a little too often. You're so good with them, Anna. I don't know what we'd do without you. You're a lifesaver. Maybe those words were innocent, but when I heard them over and over, they started to feel heavier. One Saturday, I came home from grocery shopping earlier than expected. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw David's car parked outside. He was supposed to be out with a friend. When I walked in, Anna was sitting at the kitchen counter, sipping a glass of juice. David was standing across from her, leaning on the counter, smiling at something she had just said. The kids were playing in the backyard. They weren't even in the room. Both of them jumped slightly when I walked in. "Oh, hey," Anna said brightly. "The kids are outside. Do you want me to stay until you're done putting the groceries away?" Her voice was casual, but I couldn't shake the way David avoided my eyes. That night, when I asked him about it, he brushed it off. "She was just keeping me company until you got back. Don't overthink it." And maybe I would have believed him if it weren't for the perfume. A few days later, I was cleaning up the back seat of David's car, picking up snack wrappers and toys the kids had left behind. That's when I caught the faint smell of Anna's perfume. Not just faint lingering. Strong. I froze, holding one of my daughter's stuffed animals in my hand, inhaling the scent that didn't tabilo to me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Anna had ridden in the car once. Maybe David had given her a ride home after babysitting. But even if that were true, why hadn't he mentioned it? The doubts started to multiply when Anna texted me. She began to ask more about David's schedule than mine. "Will David be home tonight? Do you want me to come by while David's watching the kids?" At first, I didn't notice, but once I put the pieces together, the questions felt like daggers. I also started to notice how Anna dressed. She had always been casual jeans, sweaters, ponytails. But lately, when she came over, she wore fitted tops, styled her hair differently, added makeup she didn't wear before. It could have been a coincidence. A young woman experimenting with her style, but every time David was around, she seemed just a little more polished. The breaking point of my unease came during a family dinner. Anna had stayed after watching the kids, and I invited her to join us. Halfway through the meal, she reached across David to grab a dish, her arm brushing his. It was nothing really, but the way they exchanged a glance in that split second sent a chill down my spine. A glance that said, "This isn't the first time we've crossed that line." That night, lying in bed beside my husband, I stared into the dark, my mind racing. Was I being paranoid? Was I inventing problems that didn't exist? Or was I finally seeing what had been in front of me all along? I wanted so badly to be wrong. But deep though, I knew something was shifting. The babysitter who had seemed like a blessing was becoming a shadow in my home. Suspicion is a poison. It seeps into every thought, every glance, every silence between words. By this point, my trust in David and in Anna was cracked, but I still clung to the hope that I was wrong, that I was inventing problems in a life that looked perfect from the outside. But then I started finding things. The first was a lip gloss. I was tidying up the living room after a long day when I spotted it on the coffee table. A brand I didn't use, a shade too bold for me, bright red. Something I hadn't worn since college. I picked it up, turning it in my hand, frowning. "Anna," I muttered under my breath. I set it aside, telling myself it was nothing. Maybe she had forgotten it after babysitting. Still, something about seeing it there, inches from where David always sat, made my stomach twist. The second clue was harder to dismiss. One Sunday morning, I went to do laundry and found a shirt of David's at the bottom of the hamper. It smelled faintly of perfume. Not mine, not the soft vanilla scent I wore, but something floral, sharper, younger. I buried my face in the fabric, praying I was wrong, but the scent clung stubbornly. When I asked David about it, he shrugged. "Probably transferred from hugging you, but I hadn't worn that perfume." Ever then came the earring. It happened on a Tuesday. I was buckling my daughter into her car seat when I noticed something glinting on the floor mat. I picked it up, a small silver hoop. Definitely not mine. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't the kids. It wasn't mine. And the only other woman who spent that much time in our car was Anna. The final blow came in the form of a text message I wasn't supposed to see. David had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered. Normally, I respected his privacy. We didn't snoop. We never needed to. But when the screen lit up, my heart nearly stopped. It was a message from Anna. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about it. I stood there frozen, staring at the words. My hands shook as I scrolled further. Another message from a few days earlier. When can we do it again? I miss you. The air rushed out of my lungs. I felt like I was drowning in my own kitchen. That night, I didn't say anything. I lay beside David in bed, silent, my back turned to him. He draped an arm around me, whispered goodnight, as if nothing was wrong. But all I could hear was Anna's voice in my head, whispering from his phone. I tried to hold it together for the kids. I smiled when I dropped them off at preschool, made small talk with other moms, cooked dinners like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was unraveling. Every laugh David shared with Anna replayed in my head. Every compliment, every lingering glance. Now, with proof in my hands, I couldn't pretend anymore. One evening, I decided to test him. David, I said casually over dinner, I found an earring in your car. Any idea where it came from? He froze for half a second too long. Then he forced a laugh. Probably the kid's teacher or something. You know how messy the backseat gets. A teacher. He didn't even try to make it believable. Later that night, I confronted him about the perfume on his shirt. He rolled his eyes. Rachel, you're imagining things. You're always so suspicious lately. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stared at him and whispered, Am I? Or are you just that careless? He didn't answer. At this point, denial was no longer an option. The lip gloss, the perfume, the earring, the texts, it was all there, piling up like bricks in a wall I couldn't climb over. I knew what I had to do. The next time Anna was scheduled to babysit, I told her I'd be home late. But in reality, I planned to come back early. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The night I decided to come home early, my heart wouldn't stop erasing. I told Anna I'd be out late running errands and that David would be home if she needed anything. I kissed my kids goodbye, tucked my hair behind my ears, and tried to act normal. But inside, I was on fire. As I drove away, I didn't even go far. I parked a few streets down, waiting, watching the clock. Every minute dragged, thick with dread. After Anna, I turned the car back toward home. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly, my knuckles ached. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked calm. Lights glowed in the living room. From outside, I could hear faint laughter. I swallowed hard, every nerve in my body screaming that I was about to open a door I could never close again. I stepped inside quietly. At first, I didn't see them. The kids were fast asleep upstairs. The living room was empty, toys scattered on the rug. I walked slowly down the hall, following the sound of hushed voices and muffled laughter. The voices were coming from the guest bedroom. I pushed the door open, and there they were. David and Anna, together, her shirt half unbuttoned, his hands on her waist. Their faces inches apart until the sound of the door stopped them cold. For a second, no one moved. The silence was louder than any scream. Anna's eyes went wide, her face pale. David froze, guilt written across every inch of his body. Rachel, he started, but his voice cracked. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. My stomach dropped, my chest hollowed out. Everything I had suspected, everything I had prayed wasn't true, was right there in front of me. I took a step into the room. My voice came out steady, though my body shook. How long? Neither answered. How long? Anna's lips trembled. It just happened. Don't, I snapped. Don't insult me with that line. Nothing just happens. I turned to David. You brought her into our home, around our children. And my throat tightened, but I forced the words out. You betrayed all of us. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing, desperate. Rachel, listen, I didn't mean, you didn't mean. I laughed bitterly. Didn't mean what? To get caught? Anna tried to speak, but I held up my hand. Not a word from you. You were supposed to take care of my children, not crawl into my husband's arms. You were supposed to help me, not destroy me. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. David reached for me. Rachel, please, we can work this out. I stepped back. Don't you dare touch me. I looked between them, my husband of 8 years, and the young woman I had trusted in my home, and I felt something shift inside me. The heartbreak was still there, yes, but beneath it, a steel edge of resolve began to form. This marriage, I said quietly, is over. David's face crumpled. Don't say that. It's over, I repeated. You made sure of that the second you crossed this line. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. My hands trembled, my chest heaved, but I kept moving. Upstairs, I peeked into my children's room. They were sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world had just changed forever. I whispered a promise to them. I'll protect you, even if it means walking away from him. Downstairs, I grabbed my purse and keys. David followed me, voice breaking. "Rachel, please don't leave. Let's talk." I spun on him, fury burning through my tears. "Talk. You've had plenty of time to talk. Instead, you chose lies. You chose her." He reached for me again. I pulled the door open. "Stay away from me. Stay away from the kids until I decide how to explain this to them." His voice followed me into the night, pleading, pathetic. I didn't look back. Outside, the cool air hit my face, sharp and cleansing. My hands were still shaking. But for the first time in weeks, I felt clarity. I had proof. I had seen it with my own eyes. And there was no going back. The morning after I walked out, the house felt like it belonged to a stranger. I sat at my sister's kitchen table, my kids still asleep in the guest room, and tried to process what had happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look on David's face, the way Anna scrambled to button a shirt, the silence that screamed louder than any apology. It wasn't a nightmare. It was real. I called a lawyer the same week. My voice shook as I explained what I had seen, but the lawyer was calm, steady. "You don't need to prove to me that he broke your vows," she said. "You just need to decide how you want to move forward." Those words sat with me. For the first time, I realized I had a choice. I wasn't powerless. I filed for divorce. David begged. He showed up at my sister's door, tears streaming down his face, swearing it was a mistake, swearing it didn't mean anything. But I had seen enough. Mistakes don't last for weeks. Mistakes don't leave earrings in cars, perfume on shirts, texts full of longing. "Go home, David," I told him. "You already made your choice." Anna disappeared from our lives quickly. She quit babysitting, of course. I heard from a neighbor that she moved away not long after. Maybe she thought leaving would erase the damage she caused. But I still see her in my mind sometimes, standing in my hallway with guilt painted across her face. She didn't just betray me. She betrayed my children. She broke into the trust of a family and tore it apart from the inside. The hardest part was the kids. They were too young to understand. My daughter asked where Daddy was, why he wasn't home at night. My son cried when David missed bedtime. I didn't know how to explain betrayal to children, so I told them what I could. "Daddy made some choices that hurt Mommy. We're going to live in a new house now, but you are loved. You will always be loved." I kept repeating it, hoping they would believe me, even when I was struggling to believe it myself. Healing didn't happen overnight. I went to therapy. I leaned on my sister more than I ever thought I would. Some days I felt strong. Other days I crumbled in the shower, sobbing so quietly I wouldn't wake the kids. But piece by piece, I began to rebuild. I learned to cook for 3 instead of 4. I learned to enjoy quiet nights without waiting for footsteps at the door. I learned that betrayal doesn't define you, it reveals the strength that you didn't know you had. Months later, I sat on the porch of our new place, watching the kids play in the yard. They were laughing, chasing bubbles, their joy unbroken by the storm that had passed over us. And I realized I had survived. Not because I wanted to, not because it was easy, but because survival is the only choice when you have little ones depending on you. Sometimes I still think about that night, about the necklace, the perfume, the texts, the look on David's face when I caught them. It hurts, yes, but it also reminds me of something important. I will never again ignore my instincts. I will never again let someone else convince me that my doubts are paranoia, because betrayal doesn't start with the final act. It starts with the little things, the glances, the late nights, the secrets whispered in your own home. And if you feel that knot in your stomach, that voice in your chest telling you something is wrong, listen to it. It might save you from years of lies. If you're listening to this, if you've been through something similar, know this. You are not alone. You are not broken. And you are not defined by the people who chose to betray you. Betrayal ended my marriage, but it didn't end me. It gave me the chance to rewrite my story, to build a life where truth is the foundation and love is honest, not borrowed from shadows. And for the first time in a long time, I believe that's possible.